Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Call the Doctor. Today, we're going to be playing around a bit with Claude Code. So you may have heard this AI coding is all the thing. So I thought I would try it. So therefore, today, this morning, I signed up for Claude Code and have been busy trying out some things. So here's the Claude Code getting started page. It's really easy to set up. So if you've used things like ChatGPT or just regular Claude AI before, the experience is a little different, right? Whereas in ChatGPT, you message a browser window and you get responses. In Claude Code, you work in a terminal window. So it's much like using a tool like Git or something, right? Like you're typing commands and getting responses in a terminal window. And unlike trying to do coding tasks with, say, ChatGPT, where it was just code that would show up in the browser and then you copy and paste to a text editor and then you build that, then you test it. With Claude Code, Claude can itself write the code into a folder that you're at. So that's very convenient. I was a little surprised, though, that it's not able to test things itself, right? So it still involves the human giving a prompt, getting some code, trying out that code, and then critiquing to Claude, hey, Claude, this worked or that didn't work. Um, so it's quite tedious. It's like having a very enthusiastic but somewhat inept intern assistant. So you need constant monitoring to keep it on track. And like it says here, the best thing to do is iterate and start with small features as you go. And that's what I did. So this is the initial prompt I gave, and the better the prompt you give, the more background, the better the result will be. But I kept it pretty simple in this case. I said, create a web app that connects to a REST API server, i.e. HSDS, running in this URI. Prompt for username and password, and then use HTTP basic auth to do a GET request to /home username and display the results. Right. So I thought this would be a good use case, experiment, because I've never hardly done any web app programming. In testing the REST API with HSDS, I've mainly just used curl requests and looking at the response. And then writing Python test code that uses HTTP gets to test. So this is really new for me. And I think my thinking was that here I would benefit most because Claude would undoubtedly know more about the ins and outs of web app programming than I do. If it was Python programming, maybe I would be more adept, or maybe not. I haven't tried it yet. But anyway, so there's my prompt, and Claude says, I'll help you create a web app that connects to this. It's gained the directory, so it's nothing here. I'm starting from zero. You can start with an existing code base, and that's fine too. In this case, we're starting from a total blank slate. Um, so it says it did this. I created this. These are the features. It explains how to use various security notes. And here now we can go and actually run this. So I had this here. Let me see, where was that? Yeah, so this was localhost, home John Claude, hsweb, domains.html. So let's refresh this. So as I ask, it prompts for username and password. I click the button, it makes a request, and it gets this result. So I have to say, in a way, this is already pretty impressive. It nicely formatted the result. We know we have little icons here for folders and files. It has this thing I didn't ask for, but I can see the raw JSON response if I'm curious, which is useful for debugging. Notice here it has, and again, I didn't ask for this. It shows the owner, the created, and the modified timestamps. And if you look at the JSON response, the created and last modified are in seconds since the main startup. So it converts to a human readable date string, which is nice. And so that was good. And now I was expecting to be able to click here and see the contents of this folder. And I do this. And it's not working. And if I do this, yeah, I was getting an error on this before, but now it's just not loading the folder. So unclear. Anyway, I went through several iterations trying to work out this bugs. And then I eventually switched up to, oh, first let me show you the actual code. 1 second. So if we look at this first iteration, domains.html, it's written very nicely, I have to say, right? So a nice CSS, and HTML is nothing if not verbose. Eventually get to the script part. Again, it's nicely formatted. So it's not like the code that is output is some kind of horrible human unreadable mess. It's such that I believe it'd be fairly reasonable for the human to jump in and make changes and edit, which is really good. And I'd say compared to the code I would have written, it probably would have taken longer. And also, I don't think I would be as careful as Claude is in many cases. So like here, we're doing a fetch to the server, and then it's carefully getting if it's success, it does this. If it's a failure, it has a nice error message. And then it shows the error. So a lot of code that's a little tedious to write that I think as a human just doing a Scratch app, I would probably not bother doing it myself. Okay, so that's good. And then I went through several more iterations of this. So let me go to, oops. I think this was interesting. Sorry, ugh. I know that. Okay, finally. So this one. So I changed it up to work like this. Let me refresh. To just ask it for a path to display. So if I do home John and say go, it shows I have a folder. There's a path, it's the owner, created, and last modified. And again, we have this show last request, so you can see the actual URI that was sent, and you can see the JSON response. If you're curious. And if I actually have a file, so now we're seeing, in this case, I asked for display more verbose information about a file. And it shows a number of data types, number of objects, total size, metadata bytes, number of linked chunks, MD5 sum, all this. And again, you can see where compared to the JSON response, the number of bytes returned is always in decimal, whereas here they convert that to a human readable string, kilobytes or megabytes or gigabytes, whatever. Okay. And then I had a prompt like group the number of objects. So let's say this is all over map. We have num datasets, we have num objects, which is num datasets plus num data types plus num groups, which is here somewhere. And I said, display that like in a sub box, nicely formatted. So we did that. So let me go there. I think this is the last version. So now we see we have num objects is 14, and inside that we display data sets, data types, and groups. Total size is 6 kilobyte, and inside that it does metadata bytes, allocated bytes, and linked bytes. Still a little, I need to do some of these chunks and link chunks, and the MD5 sum. Next, I added to show ACLs. So here, so in this case, the doing a get on tall.h5 itself doesn't need authentication. But doing a get on the ACLs does need authentication because the ACLs is not public read in this case. So I asked Claude, say, if you try to get ACLs and you get a 403 error, show a pop-up and enter to allow the user to enter its username and password, which it did. Okay. And now we see the access control list. So we have two ACLs in this case. There's a default, which is public read. That's how I was able to do the initial get without entering my username and password. And permissions for John, which is me, which is create, read, update, delete, read ACL, and update ACL. So it's a read ACL permission that I have in the authenticated case that I don't have in the non-authenticated case that allowed that request to be processed. Okay, so that about sums it up. Oh, you can do a command called /init. Let me get organized here. Too many windows. So this is my terminal, my Claude terminal. So I asked it, if you do a command called /init, it creates a claude.md markdown file. And we can see that here, which gives a summary, project overview, naming conventions, architecture, API integration, authentication flow, visual data presentation, state management, how to create new versions, UI components, common patterns, testing, and API endpoints used. So if this was a project for a developer intern, you'd have to give them kudos for doing such a good job of documenting their work, whereas I feel many experienced developers would do much less in that regard. Anyway, okay. Oh, and I was going to do like a live update, but unfortunately, I reached my token limit, and so I'm disabled until 10 p.m. Tonight. So that's too bad. But anyway, you can imagine how you could iterate like this to create a fairly complex application. So I'd say it's been a little annoying, tedious at times, but I think it's a very interesting technology. I expect it will only improve as time goes forward. So I think it's something that's worthwhile for all developers to keep an eye on. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, John. Very impressive. Is it the free version you're using or it is a paid version?
So Claude AI has a free version.
Mm-hmm.
Claude Code does not. Okay.
I
The Claude Code, there's a $20 a month version and a $200 a month version. And I'm using the $20 a month version. I think the $200 a month version, I expect the primary difference is that you'd have a higher session limit. Right. And you don't get a flavor for what's really like working with this. It spends a lot of time thinking. So it's like I'd almost want to have like 3 or 4 Claude sessions going at once. Like imagine you are engineering supervisor and you have 4 people on your team, and you give one a task, and while he's working that, you give another task to another developer, and so on. But that's kind of like the experience. I think just having one Claude session, it's kind of not engaging enough to keep my attention full time.
But you were drinking coffee. And another question, have you tried to install software with it? Like
Mm,
put some installation instructions and let it install for you?
right, right. No, I guess it didn't come up in this case, right? Because it didn't need any special tooling to create the web app.
I'm trying to install grep 2 library for our work, and it's
Mm.
nightmare. I have to install like 4 additional libraries, and some of them,
But I would think it would work in the environment of your terminal, right? So whatever tools
uh-huh.
you have in your terminal, I think it would have access to, though I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, but like feed MD file with installation instruction for software, and it does magic, and tell where to install, and then it does magic for you, following instructions in MD file instead of me following instructions.
Right, right. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, right? That was surprised it can't do more on its own.
Uh-huh.
And it may be just a security precaution, right? If Claude could be off running, random tools on its own, that might be a danger.
Uh-huh. I see. Thank you.
All right. Okay, cool. So I learned a lot today. I hope this was helpful for everyone else. And if there are no further questions, we will see you at the next Call the Doctor.
Thanks, John. That was good.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.